How's it going? Good, I'm great. We're going to talk about Livewire. Does anybody like Livewire? Does anybody use Livewire? Cool. I'm pumped. So December 13th, 2021. This is the day that Alex Garrett-Smith, he's a creator of a Laravel learning platform called Code Course. He decided against using Livewire for his rewrite. And I was furious. So I sent him this message. He said he was gonna. Big old liar. Hey Alex, saw that you went with, I think, jQuery for your rewrite. I think. Wondering if you'd have a minute to hop on a Zoom call sometime and let me dig into where Livewire fell short for your needs. Got any time? And then he said, how did you get this number? Which was rude. And we're on Twitter. But he's awesome. And we had a Zoom call, we hopped on a Zoom call, and we didn't leave that Zoom call until we had built like a hypothetical version of Livewire that he wouldn't have switched away from. So that was like the goal of the call, and that was so inspiring to me, just that idea of like, okay, what's wrong with it? Let's move past it. What could we do to move past it? So I started having a lot of these conversations with people until I had this giant laundry list of like, these are all the things we want. But they're really ambitious and difficult. So long story short, I spent the last year and a half clickety-clacketing away on Livewire version 3, and I'm gonna launch it on stage today. So I'm pretty pumped about that. Thanks. So yeah, it's like I said, it's a pretty ambitious thing. It's a whole rewrite. I've rewrote it multiple times, and let me tell you, always rewrite all your software all the time. It's always a good idea. It's never a bad idea. Just do that. So yeah, we did that, and I got a lot to show you. First, it's built on Alpine now. So yeah, Livewire under the hood is Alpine front end. So like before I was maintaining 2 front end frameworks, it felt like X model is wire model, like it's just 2 different things. So I wanted to merge those 2. And there's so many other things we can do now that Livewire is on Alpine that you're gonna see. That's gonna be pretty cool. So this is like a layout file in your Livewire app where you have like the Alpine script tags, the core, and then the plugins, and then styles, right? Like this is pretty standard, Livewire layout. So now with V3, Alpine's just included, so you don't need to include the core. It's just out of the box. And more than that, all of the plugins, every one of them, there's like 7 or 8 of them, they're all included out of the box. You don't have to worry about including anything really, it's just done. And we inject Livewire styles for you, so you don't have to write that. And Livewire scripts, you don't have to write that. And the body tag isn't actually, you don't even need it in HTML. So this is literally like, if you want to be a minimalist, this is a valid Livewire layout file now. So MorphDOM, yeah. So MorphDOM is this package we've used since day 1. It's a third-party package. And it's like anytime Livewire makes the page live, like anytime the page changes, MorphDOM is behind the scenes making that update. And it's a great tool, but there's like, limits to what it can do. And oddly, like things like this is just the most standard Blade syntax, an if statement to show an error message. MorphDOM struggles with these backend conditionals because elements are just appearing, and sometimes it doesn't know, did it just appear or is it being changed or something like that. So if you use Livewire that sometimes simple stuff like this makes your app a little wonky. And you're like, what's wrong with it? So you go to Stack Overflow, you go to Discord, you desperately ask everyone on the street, what is wrong with my app? And they tell you, just add wire key to every element on the page. And it'll work perfectly. Yeah, so this was like table stakes for me with Livewire V3 is like, whatever happens, I don't want this to be the story. I want you to be able to just write this. And now you can. We rewrote MorphDOM from the ground up using our own diffing algorithm that's smart, it's more efficient, it's faster, and we do some back-end things like inject markers around conditionals, so you don't have to worry about any of this. So V3, again, table stakes for me is like death to wire key, hopefully. Yeah, so that's a really big like core improvement. Request bundling. So this is one that, like if you have 3 components on a Livewire page, or however many, and they all make an update at the same time, all those updates are individual network requests that get sent to the server at the same time. So if you have like a table with 15 components as rows and they all do something, that's 15 network requests, and that's a little much. So something I wanted to do in the core was bundle those together. So in V3, if multiple components make an update at the same time, they get bundled and they get shipped off to the server as one whole. And that's huge for performance so that you're not sending oodles of network requests, but this really had to be done for other features that I wanted to do, like component nesting. That's actually the one that Alex was like, component nesting is pretty difficult to like make a property react in the children, whatever. So these big features that I wanted to build needed some of these core improvements like request bundling. So yeah, and way better docs. I didn't think the docs were bad until I started writing the new ones and was like, wow. So the new ones I'm pumped about. First off, yeah, so Laravel.com, Taylor already showed this, but this is just like kind of a gratifying experience for me. You just type Livewire in front of Laravel and now you have Livewire's docs. And yeah, so the Livewire documentation, it looks a lot better. We hired a designer who actually knows what they're doing. I'm the designer who doesn't know what he's doing. And yeah, so it looks nice and does the tool justice, and a lot of cool people recommend it. Taylor, you know, he's into it, and then, you know, I recommend it as well, so, you know, you gotta use it. And the docs, yeah, so these, I basically sat down, this is all rewritten from the ground up, every line of documentation. I just like went at it, like, it's almost a book. It's like, this is my ode to Livewire. This is exactly how you can do everything, and I tried to add as much context as I could, like things that I think about this feature, or tips, or security concerns, or all these notes, and more code examples, and relevant code examples. So there's just a lot there, and even deep stuff. Stuff like that morph DOM that nobody cares about, but if it doesn't work, you're probably mad about it. Yeah, I went through and like, if you care, you can understand the deep internals of Livewire, and I tried to visualize everything I could and whatever. So I put a lot of work into it, and then Taylor, he put a bunch of work into it and reworked all my words to sound really good and Laravel-y and Taylor-y. So yeah, so I'm pretty pumped about the docs. Big improvement. Okay. It's code time. All right, first thing, this is a little, you know, app in Livewire, Laravel, whatever. When I switch pages, look at that loading thing at the top. It's a full loading blip. That's like so archaic, come on. This is something we've wanted since day one, is SPA mode, or, you know, like the ability to change pages and it just magically works and there's no, you know, big full page reload. So let me show you that in Livewire. I'm gonna open up the DevTools and we're gonna throttle this down to fast 3G to make it slow. So when I change these pages, you know, it's pretty slow. If we clock it, it's like 1.74 seconds between page loads, because it makes a network request and then it has to destroy the JavaScript runtime, rebuild it, it has to paint everything on the page. It's just kind of this big task. So now with Livewire, basically any A tag on the page, you add wire navigate. And now let's refresh this page. We're still on that fast 3G slow connection. I switch pages, and yeah, it's a lot faster. So this time, give it up for wire navigate. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about this. It's like, so 600 milliseconds, that's how long the request took, and you'll see that that's how long the whole page change takes. And we have a nice little loading spinner, and it's really cool. So when I was building this, I just went out, you know, on the internet and like, what are all the other packages like this and what are they doing? And one of the really cool things that I saw somebody do is start requesting on mouse down instead of mouse up. So the click event, you know, in your browser, it fires when the mouse gets released. So if you start requesting on mouse down, so I'm gonna mouse down on this, the request is pending, now I let go, and it just shows instantly. So yeah, and like, this is cool, but it's extra cool when you know how long a click takes. Like, how long really does it take to click your mouse? Like, think about that. It's actually way longer than you think. It's like 100 milliseconds to click a mouse. I like made a little thing that was just practicing. It was like, this is nuts. So you're shaving like 100 milliseconds off of, and then if you got slow clickers in your app, that's like gonna be free. Network, there is no network. It just works. So yeah, that's Wire Navigate. We're really pumped about that. I showed off this, so Tailwind UI, they have this UI kit built in Next.js. And so for me, this was the guiding light. Like, is if I can take exactly what they have and make it indistinguishable with just wire navigate, that would be awesome. So this is that. This is Tailwind UI's application, and this is a Livewire version. You can switch pages, and it happens all instantly. You can start a player and pause it, and state is shared, and then if you travel between pages, that player is still playing. You can persist portions of the layout, and that was a big key for us too. So this is all available in Livewire v3 out of the box. It's no extra package, and you won't even notice it if you never add wire navigate. It just sleeps. But if you want to awaken the beast, add wire navigate, and it's there. All right. Okay. So let's go to this. This is a form. We got to have a form. We're going to start with a form. Create post. So this is a Livewire component that's really straightforward. You have a public title, public content. I'm not actually saving the post. I'm just DDing it for now. And then this big template here that's not wired up at all. This is just kind of blade. So we're going to wire up this form, and we're going to see some cool stuff. So let's first start with this. On a form, to intercept a submission in Livewire, you add wire:submit. And then in submit, we'll say save, okay? And then let's check this out. We go to run it, and yeah, it works, but notice we didn't need this thing that you might have seen yesterday, .prevent. Have you ever used wire submit without .prevent? 0 times, right? I've never used it without .prevent. Let's just make it the default. The reason you need it is because normally if you don't have that, it'll actually intercept the submit, but the form actually fully submits in the browser, and now we just bake it out of the box. So yeah, so that's that, and let's wire up these wire models. So input type text, we'll say wire model title, and then text area is wire model content. Okay, so we're wire modeled up, and we're going to submit this form. We're just DDing this title and this content. We'll say the title and the content. We hit save, and there. So it DD'd it, post created the title content. So that's great, but check this out now. Let's look at the network requests being sent. And I type in the title, blah, 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 and the content, and hit save. And there's only one network request sent for that whole form submission. So this is no different than a standard vanilla Laravel app or a Next app or anything. It's just you're filling out a form and you submit it, and it's a single network request, where in v2, wire model is sending requests as you type. And that's one of those big things that I wanted to change with v3. I want to make the default so that network requests aren't flying all around everywhere. So v3, you probably in v2 you use .defer for everything. That's the default. Just wire model is deferred by default, which is just a good default. Okay, so wire model got a bunch of other upgrades. Oh, briefly, you can add wire model.live like Taylor did, and now title will just be real-time updated just like that as we type. And yeah, but I've only ever used that for search forms and stuff, All right, so that's wire model. So under the hood, this is way beefier than it was before, and it's all Alpine and tangled. So let me show you something. Say let $wire equal livewire.first, okay? And now this $wire, we have a JavaScript object that represents our whole Livewire component, state, methods, everything. This is kind of the belly of the beast in Livewire, and I just want to show it to you. So $wire, if we say title, $wire.title, we get an empty string. If we type in the title and we say $wire.title, we see that stuff. If we make $wire.title equal to hey, 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 and submit it, then title just reacts automatically. Yeah, and so you can change properties. You can fire methods, like we could say $wire.save, and it'll fire the save method just as if you did it with the UI, and it's all asynchronous, so you can actually return whatever from save. And then we call wire model.save, so we call await. Whoop, just wait. Wire.save. And then bam, it returns hey, as if it's just like a JavaScript thing. And this is the way network requests should happen. You shouldn't have to worry about all that extra boilerplate. It's just call the method, get the result. So yeah, I wanted to show you this under the hood. I'm gonna go even a little bit deeper right now. So check this out, $wire.instance. You're not gonna use this, but I just wanna show you because I think it's cool. So ephemeral. This is an object that I keep track of in Livewire now of all the state of the component. So as I type here, this is considered ephemeral state. It's front-end state that's not synchronized with the backend, but I also keep track of canonical state. And this is the last known state on the backend. So I must have, this must still have wiremodel.live on it or something. But whatever, you get the idea. Ephemeral is ever changing, canonical is the last known state from the server. So whenever we make a network request, we just take a diff of the two. It's like, this is what the state is now, that's what the state was then, and then we send it up to the server and say, make those updates. So yeah, it's a new core that's just like really reactive and Alpine, first and foremost. So let me show you another thing. This input here is wire model. If we make another input and make this X model and say $wire.title and then refresh, we have two inputs completely bound together because under the hood, wire model is just Alpine and they're all using that $wire under the hood. So yeah, I want to just expose that to you to show you like what's going on beneath Livewire now, because yeah, all this syntax is kind of like syntax sugar on top of that core. All right, so that's cool. Let me show you a feature that I'm really pumped about. It's one of those just fun ones. It's so fun. So this JS, let's just say alert, hey. So now in Livewire, you can just call JavaScript from the server directly. So if we hit save, it's just gonna call that JavaScript and say, hey. And so this one actually came about because I was pairing with Nuno on Volt, and he's like, oh yeah, and you can do that JS thing in Livewire. And I was like, that doesn't exist, but it should. So we made it happen. This JS, and you can just run JavaScript code. So let's make this like here.here. And so I was just like making this talk and thinking, we're executing, full JavaScript, so we can do like $wire.title is empty string. So we type into this, we hit save, and now the server can access its own $wire.title and do whatever it wants. And even more than that, I was like, what if we took like Sweet Alert? You guys remember Sweet Alert? When everybody used Sweet Alert for a while? Yeah, it's that cool like modal package thing. So I pulled in the CDN from the Sweet Alert site and was like, okay, so now we can just type things like swal.fire.hey, okay, and then type in, hit save, and then Sweet Alert just fires. And you can do really complex stuff, like you can hook into confirmations of modals and decline states and await more $wire calls. It's just really fun. So I was having more fun with it. It was like, I could probably even do something like make macros. So I just started making some macros. I made this modal macro. Super simple, just component macro modal, and then I run that JavaScript fire. So in your apps, you can make your own APIs that are like modal, hey, and then hit, submit, and there it is. It's just like, what a nice way to show a modal, am I right? Yeah. So then I was like, I should pull in a confetti library because that would be fun. So yeah. And we should also say Laracon, and see it just say Laracon. Cool. Okay. So JS is super fun. Here's a big Livewire 2 to Livewire 3 shift. PHP attributes. So I don't know if you're familiar with these. They're in PHP 8.1 or 2. Somebody who knows, yell it out. 8.1. All right, so things like in V2, if you have a property like title. If you wanted to make it, in the query string or something, you would say protected query string equals or rules equals. And you're keeping that behavior separate from the property itself. So Taylor was talking about co-location, and this to me is that same spirit of like things related to properties. It would be nice if we could co-locate their behavior just like in Tailwind or Alpine. So let me show you this locked feature. So we're just gonna add this attribute here called locked, okay? So we add locked above title, and now we go to type in, and we try to update it, and it says cannot update locked property. So this is a little feature that maybe you use for like a model ID or something that you want to lock. But let me first say, I hated these. When I started writing V3, I started doing this. In fact, the last Laracon, I showed you guys this. I thought like, this looks nice to me. It's just like sleek, it's right there. PHP attributes, oh, and it's a full namespace, like, and you gotta pull that in at the top, like, it's so ugly. So I came on No Plans to Merge, I'm talking to Daniel, and I'm like, I hate these things, but maybe I should use them, they're official PHP. Let me tell you, I love them now, like, I'm using them way too much, because we're like, wait a second, they're classes, so you can do anything you can normally do with a class and hack them. So I now love them, and I'm gonna hopefully convince you to love them. So we're gonna build our own locked. Let's remove this one. And we can make our own attributes in Livewire now. So artisan Livewire attribute. And what should it be named? We'll call it locked, okay? And then we'll pull that up here. And real quick, it's now app Livewire. I asked you guys on Twitter the other day, it was like app HTTP Livewire still, or just app Livewire? And it was like, app Livewire. So we did that. App Livewire, we have an attribute here called locked. So check this out. Inside of these attributes, it's now like a full extension point in Livewire. You can hook into any part of the lifecycle that you could normally in your whole component. So if I do something like this, like mount, and then DD mounted, or mounted actually, and then refresh and hit save, or no, not save, just refresh. Okay, what did I do wrong? I probably didn't import it, thank you. Okay, that's the one. Refresh, and now it just DDs. And we can do other stuff. There's other affordances, like set value to YOP. Oh yeah. Refresh, and then it says YOP, so it can hook into the lifecycle of the property that it's attached to. It can hook into anything. It can hook into, render or call or anything. So let's hook into update. So this hook here is gonna run anytime the property is about to be updated. So these attributes are kind of like little, portable middlewares almost. So we hook into update. Let's throw new exception, and we'll say, yo, stop trying to update. Okay. And then we try to update it, and it says, yo, stop trying to update. And the coolest part about this is that if we actually look at the source for locked inside Livewire, it's just that. Like, I made this, and all the features that you're gonna use, like Livewire core features, you can never make your own attribute. It doesn't matter. But it's like an internal thing that I exposed to you. And yeah, so these features themselves are just that simple. This was so much more complex in V2 to hook into an update and do something like that. So, pumped about attributes. Let me show you another one that I dig. Taylor showed this off yesterday. This is existing Livewire functionality, but I just love it because it's such a good, bang for your buck. Like, it's just something that's really hard in other, front-end setups to make the URL bar just mirror whatever you type in on the page, and you change the URL bar, and it just updates on the page. And because these attributes have named parameters, you can just alias stuff. Like, we could say as foo. And now, like, this is like if you have like a search property and you want it to be Q equals or something, or S equals, remove this, load the page, type in, and now it says foo equals blah, 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 blah. Yeah. All right, so that's URL. Let me show you my absolute favorite attribute, and that is rule. So this is where I think attributes really shine. Is stuff like this. Check this out. So rule required, and let's throw on a min3, okay? Yeah. Rule required min3, drop down here, call this validate, and now go to save the form, and it just validates, and the rule is just declared right there. And I think this is, yeah, give it up for rule. Give it up for rule. Come on. To me, it's just so much nicer than having that, rules array, and you're repeating the name of the property. But it's just, again, it's this co-location that's so awesome. And even better, okay, these validation rules in your app, like, this is part of your user interface. Your users read this, they see it, but like, who customizes these, right? Like, we do maybe, but a lot of times you just use the stock Laravel ones. And who of you has not shown a user the DOB field is required? Because you have to go in and add, whatever. So that's just so easy right now because we're right here. We could just say as, this is my ode to my baby boy River. The Dada field is required. So this is just a really nice affordance. Like, you can so easily make things look nice. And same thing with message. You could just be like, you really need to add that field. I'm not gonna type that out, but you heard it. All right, title, yeah. So I think that's just like a much better validation story for me personally. Yeah, and another awesome thing about this is real-time validation. It's like a nice feature in Livewire v2. It's a feature, it's really easy to do, but you have to hook into updating and do a few things. Now, it's like not even a feature because this rule attribute actually protects this value from ever being set without passing that validation rule, which I think makes so much sense. It's like you put it right there, they get it. Play it in. All right, so validation, yeah, let's make this real-time updated. We add .blur so that when we focus away from the field, the blur event fires. And yeah, so now we have real-time validation on the form. I try to tab away, it runs more validation, and it's like not even a feature now. It's just how often you want to update the server. It's going to run that validation. So pumped about that. All right, that's wiremodel.blur. Okay, here's another one in kind of in the vein of validation. We have this rule here. When you have a form with like 10, like in the real world, a real app, not the apps I make, which are create posts. Like you have real apps, they have 10, 15, 20 fields in a form. So this whole bit in your component is just so huge. And then you have all this stuff about it. So something that's been requested since day one is some kind of abstraction for these fields to extract them into something else. So we have that now. And they're called form objects. So we could say public post form is form. And let's create that form object. So we say artisan livewire form. What should it be named? Post form. Okay. And then we go in here and we have forms and then post form. So we can take all these properties and just paste them in. And there we go. So we can extract those in that form. Let me import this. All right, validation should work. The only little bit here is this wire model. We have to form dot. And then error will do form dot, formal dot. Oh boy. Formal dot. And then we wire model form dot content. And error whatever. You know what? You don't even need to see the error. Okay, cool. So that's the form, and it should all just work. Let's test it out. We hit save, and the title field is required, and all that's been cleaned up and extracted into a separate object, which is just, nice. And form objects are just plain objects. So let's take this bit here and put it into a method called store. Okay, import post, this title, cool. And so after we validate, we'll call this form store, and then we'll say this arrow redirect. And we'll redirect to the page that shows all the posts, which, side note on redirect, as I was writing the docs, I was like, that's fine, but if that's already a Livewire component anyway, why can't we just type in the Livewire component and just redirect directly there? So we can do that now. All right, and let's test it out. We'll say the Laracon post. Yeah. It's like a newspaper or something. Okay, we hit save, and there we go. It worked, stored it. That's form objects. All right, show posts. So this is a little, show a bunch of posts and a little bit of details about them at the top here. Let me just walk you through it. We have this posts property. We're getting all the posts from the database, and then we have a selected property. So post is the list, and selected is when we click. So I can click through these, and they get selected. So the HTML is really simple. We're for eaching through all the posts, and we're showing if they're selected or not. So the one thing here, this bit here at the top, these stats, it's actually a nested Livewire component that presumably does some statistical stuff. I don't know. It's called Livewire stats. We pass in the selected post as a property. So let's take a look at stats. Okay, in stats we have public post right here, and this is Livewire 2 stuff. You can pass in a property to a component, and it just gets set, as a property in the child component. So that works, but check this out. If we change this selected, this Laracon post is still showing. So we say where the wild things are, whatever, and it's not changing because in Livewire, having two components interact with each other in that way, like using them like they're a view component, has been difficult because the components span across the full stack. So there's difficulties with it. But we have request bundling. We have a lot of plumbing in place now to be able to do something like add reactive to a field, and when we change it, it just reacts the way you expect it to. And it's reactivity like deeply. So if you had state in that child component, it would only update that property. It's really intelligent about keeping track of like, oh, this property changed, well, we'll update it in the child. So yeah, that's pretty sweet. Oh, here's another one that I think this one's crazy powerful. Again, it's like some of my favorite features are the ones that are everything's already in place and you're just like, oh, now we can do this. So check this out. Let's add a button called deselect. There's a method in the parent called deselect. We could say wire click. Think about what you would do in V2 if you wanted to call a method on a parent. You might emit an event or something. There's a few different ways to do it. But now you can just access parents with $parent. So we can call a method on a parent super easily. Just $parent. So check this out. We just hit deselect, calls the method on the parent, deselects it, removes itself. $parent, you can wire model with $parent. You could say wire model to a property of a parent component. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff there for nesting components. That was a big one that I really wanted to improve in V3. All right, let's make this slow. Let's say you're going out to the database and it's taken a while. We load up the page. The whole page is held up on a database query. Like how many times has a slow page, the cause of a slow page is almost always a database query that's holding up the whole page. So instead of holding up the whole page, in V3, you can just add lazy, and the page just loads, and then the component loads when it gets the chance, when it wants to. Yeah, which is... This is huge. This one's my favorite. It's 4 letters. 4 letters. And this is just something that is so darn useful. Any expensive component, just make it lazy. And if you don't, it's a little janky though. Like if you make everything lazy, you're loading the page and it's like bum, 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 bum. Like that's not what you want. So we have this placeholder affordance. So instead of render, well, in addition to render, you can just return HTML or whatever you want. I made a little blade view called placeholders.stats. And so check this out. Now we have a nice little skeleton loader. Yeah. And if we take that whole child and let's put it at the bottom of the page, it doesn't show up here. It's sitting at the bottom of the page, just waiting for you to scroll to it, and then it'll make the request. And then it'll show. Sweet. So that's lazy. That's nesting components. Super pumped about that. All right. It's time to introduce you to my friend, Chadwick. Okay. His name is Chad. Check out this component. Okay. Chad. Chad knows everything. You can talk to Chad about anything. He keeps all your secrets. And you can type anything in and he will, give you some advice. But Chad isn't wired up. So we're going to wire up Chad. This is the Chadwick component. There's a prompt, which we're going to map to this input field. There's a question, an answer, and then a bunch of HTML to show the question and the answer. So let's do this. Let's wire it up. Wire submit. And we're going to call, let's say, prompt. That's what we're going to call the prompt method. Shout out to Fireship. And then input, we're going to just call this prompt. So we're wire modeling this to prompt. And then the rest we'll make happen here. So let's do this. Public function prompt. And now in here, we'll set the question equal to the value of the prompt, not the prompt. Do not confuse those two. And then prompt, let's clear out. So let's make this an empty string. And then we'll set this answer to Chad ask. So we can just ask Chad. So we pass in the answer. All right, let's see if this works. We got to import Chad. Okay. Okay, so we say hi there. Type it in. We wait. Okay, so Chad knew what to say. He said, how can I assist you today? He's a good boy. But the problem with that is when I typed in here, it took a minute. Like you're waiting on that, and that input's just sitting in the form. Like that's not what we want. There's a long running network request out. So a little pattern that I like using is splitting an expensive thing in two. Take the expensive thing, this asking, isolate this here, okay? And we'll call this ask. And then instead of just directly calling ask, we'll say this arrow.js $wire.ask. And now it's going to go back to the front end, do its stuff, like clear the form, and then it'll send a request to the back end to finish the task and make the ask of Chad. I think that kind of rhymed a little. That was like a little poetic. hi. And it just shows up instantly, and then it says, hello, how can I help you today? Okay, so that's pretty cool, but if I say tell me a story, like, great, is it broken? I don't know, it's taking a long time. With something like ChatGPT, you gotta have streaming. You gotta be able to stream the response. So Chad has this little callback. OpenAI's API, you can stream the response back. But Livewire, it's like, well, how would you do that in Livewire? Well, let me show you. So we're gonna stream the answer, and we're gonna, this partial, this is just gonna be, let me show you what partial is. Let's DD partial. All right, and I got errors, what did I do? Partial. Okay. All right, so if I type, tell me a story, it is going to say, I'm sorry. Maybe that was the whole thing it was gonna say. I don't know, but trust me, it's a partial of the whole response. So, all right, we're gonna stream that partial to something called answer, and answer, we'll just make it down here. We'll say wire stream answer. So this is how it works. It's an extremely simple API to stream any text you want, or HTML, or anything you want, directly to a bit of your HTML in the component. So let's say, tell me, let's refresh it. Tell me a story. And now it's just gonna stream the response in real time. And that response being streamed, there's no extra infrastructure. There's no WebSockets, there's no polling. It's just HTTP responses can be streamed. You just like start sending it and keep sending. So yeah, you don't have to install anything. This just works. If you want to use this on your servers, locally, whatever, it just works. And you can call this from anywhere. There's nothing like that fancy going on. You can, I mean, they're deep down, there's some fanciness, but you could have a while loop with like a sleep in it and just stream a loading indicator. I don't know, whatever you want. It's just streams, which is pretty sweet. Okay, so that's great. Another more thing. I have one other more thing to show you. And this is a tease. I'm not gonna release this today, but I'm pretty stoked about it. This is something that I've wanted for a long time because, if there's some slowness in your application when you're using Livewire, these network requests are happening in places you might not expect them. And when that happens, part of your interface can feel slow, and sometimes you don't know why. And so we've done a lot to lower the amount of network requests you're sending in Livewire, like you saw. Better defaults, request bundling, all this stuff. But there's still times where you might just blame Livewire and just think like, oh, Livewire's slow, my app's slow, but there's a database query in your Blade view, and you have a hard time tracking it down. So let me introduce you to Wiretap. Wiretap is dev tools for Livewire. Check it out. So handmade dev tools. So in your Livewire apps, you hit Command K. Personally, with these types of things, I don't love like bars or little flags around the page. So it's just hidden, and you hit Command K, and there it is if you want it. You hit Command K again, and it's gone if you don't. And we can select components on the page. So let's select this component. And now we have a bunch that we can do with this. We could change state, say hey there, and it's all just reacting, some content, whatever. Just things you would expect from good dev tools. And those updates get logged as well. So, and they're time traveled. So let's actually make that, let's say, hey there, you, I don't like your girlfriend. And there we have updates being logged. And if I click this button, we're time traveling to different states of the component. So it's tracking all the states of the component and replaying those like fully on the page. And you can opt out, you just click it, and then time traveling goes away. So those are all the network requests, and there's this network request panel where you can really deep dive into a network request. Like, I want more. I want to know everything. I want to know how long did the network take for that request? How long did Laravel itself take? How long did my Livewire component take? If I have multiple Livewire components and nested Livewire components, you can drill down into each one of them and further drill down into, okay, the mount method, that was the slow thing this time. We track database query time. You can just be like, oh, there's a slow database query in the render method of that component on that request. Let me fix that. So this is hopefully going to give a lot more visibility into your application. Events, it's going to track those. And then hot reloading is a part of Wiretap. You hit start hot reloading, and now you're just hot reloading. There's no extra process to maintain. There's no build step, and now you can just change stuff. So create post, all right, and like title, let's just change this to also Dada, yeah. We hit save, and then it just says Dada. You don't have to refresh the page. It keeps your Livewire component state, so you can just keep working on your components, and things are just whiz-bang, doodad, updating on the page, so. It's launch time. Let's do the launch. I wrote this piece of code, but I can't test it. So we're testing it, right? Actually, hold up. Before we even do that, when you install Livewire v3 and you go to upgrade your app, we have an upgrade guide, but we have some other paths. Jason Beggs, he's somewhere. Jason Beggs and I, we'll help you upgrade it if you want. Just give us money. That's all we ask. So if you go to the upgrade guide, you can hire us and we'll help you. But Philo, he made a robot so that we go broke, and it's called Livewire Upgrade? Update? Ooh, sorry, Philo, it's got to be update. Livewire Update, you run this, and it'll just walk you through everything you need to know. It's upgrade? Yeah, upgrade. So you run Artisan Livewire Upgrade, and it'll walk you through and automatically like search for stuff and change stuff. It's very smart, and that's that. Or you can just, follow the command the old-fashioned way. All right, it's time to run a command that I hope works. When I run this command, it's going to do all the GitHub stuff. It's going to pull the new repo in. It's going to tag it, and it's going to launch the new site. And so by the time I walk off this stage, I think you'll be able to compose or require the new version of Livewire and look at the site and everything. Let's try it. Let's go. I'm really interested to see if this works. I think it's a 50-50 shot. But I'm pulling for it. And it's now ushering in a new era, so thanks. That's Livewire v3. Enjoy. Keep it going. Hey!
You just launched Livewire v3 on stage.
That's right.
Which, as far as we're concerned, is like probably winning the Super Bowl. I mean, in our little community, that's winning the Super Bowl. So you just won the Super Bowl.
I feel great. I'm going to Disney.
What are you going to do next?
Disney, yeah.
Are you really?
No. My wife is.
You go to Disneyland a lot, though.
I do.
Okay. So you've been working on this for like a year.
Yeah, more than that.
How does it feel to have it out there now?
Yeah, it feels great. I think there's probably going to be 0 bugs. I think I already fixed everything, so I'm just going to go relax. No, I think the real work starts now. So you all go use it, find the bugs, we'll fix them, and yeah.
We do have an actual audience question, which, by the way, first audience question, so please tweet me some audience questions because I've been working hard up here.
This whole time.
Actual audience question. Okay. I've been making them up till now. These have been Aaron's
questions.
These have all been Aaron questions. This one is a David Hemphill question, and it's on point. It's not a trick. Can you have multiple Livewire forms in a single component?
Multiple Livewire form objects?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
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 Absolutely. Caleb Porzio, everyone.
As many as you want.
Livewire v3.
Form objects for everyone. Thank you.